The more I write about the four brain learning approach, the more I am convinced that this is the holy grail of learning. Before I wrote this chapter, I was using this model in my counseling sessions to help the students when they came with the complaint that they couldn't study or couldn't get high marks or couldn't even pass the exams. It was not in definitive, structured, well defined manner. Like every writer, I believe that by writing my wisdom and knowledge, it becomes clearer and it is turning into a skill. And maybe that is the objective of this book. That is, to turn my vague ideas into a concrete skill set. So, in this section, I want to give you some real life counseling session examples on how I use this information that you received about the four brain quadrants to facilitate the learning process in students. Hopefully, after reading this book, you too will be able to use this model in helping your own students. And if you're a student, I hope that you'll be able to use it on yourself. But first, let me reiterate the centrality or the gravity or simply the importance of this concept of forebrain learning. I just want to add one more analogy, mainly because I am a wisdom quadrant dominated person. This is the way I understand most. It might get tedious, if not annoying, for people dominated by the diagrammatically opposite skill quadrant, as we discussed earlier. But again, as I just mentioned, all human beings have got activity in all the four quadrants, and it's just a matter of more or less. What I'm getting at is my analogies will still be useful for you even if you are dominated by this scale quadrant. Not to mention if you are from the other two quadrants, because for them we all share either the upper brain or the right side of the brain. Einstein revolutionized physics with his new equations. They described the universe perfectly and predicted accurately. However, the Newtonian physics also describe the universe perfectly and make their correct predictions. However, Einsteinian physics and Newtonian physics vary significantly in terms of a model of the world or universe. What happened is Einstein became more right than Newton, especially at high speed, like the speed of light. However, his equations were a bit complex, and so till today we use Newtonian equations to solve physics problems as well as engineering problems, from building a house to sending people to outer space. The reason I'm using this analogy is that I believe my four-brain learning approach is kind of Einsteinian. The explanation I provide for how learning occurs have been provided by earlier models in different ways. So far, they haven't done a very bad job, but they fail when it comes to covering the whole of the population and their learning styles. In this way, I want to position my four brain learning approach model as more complete, more universal, more holistic than the earlier models of learning. Again, because of the scope of this book, I will neither delve into the physics of Einstein or Newton, nor will I do a comparative analysis of existing learning models. I just brought this point to add more conviction for you to read on and to apply my learning model. So in this diagram, you are seeing. I compare it first, that is the four brain quadrants, to the human body. You can see it consists of the muscular system, then there is the circulatory system, then there is a circulatory system, and it's shown here the nervous system. All those combined work together to create our existence. Similarly, the left side and the right side, combined with the upper and the lower sides of the brain, combine, produce our cognitive capacity. Intelligence or holistic learning is attained when we receive information, when we are given skills, when we acquire knowledge, and when we develop wisdom, which correspond to the quadrant above each of the components of education. For me now, there is no better way to understand learning and why it occurs and why it doesn't occur in some people. So the first thing I do in the counseling session is to determine what is the dominant quadrant of that person. Most of the students complain that they don't understand what is taught in the class. They are told to do this and that. They do it and then they get bored. Consequently, they miss mastery of certain skills and then they don't understand the higher skills. This leads them to hate the process of studying itself. So these students must be motivated to study by providing them the information of how those skills that they have learned applies in the daily life, as well as the facts that they have been told to memorize. Then once they know what they are being taught is for, they can develop the motivation to study. Then the next step is to identify the skills that they have missed out. So now it's possible to work on their skill quadrant, but without stimulating the information quadrant that they are dominated by, it won't work. They'll just drop out, or they will play along, memorize, cheat in the exam, fool the world and themselves. Just yesterday, I was in a counseling session with a student exhibiting this exact problem. He was dominated by the information quadrant. It was obvious because he was a friendly boy. Also, it was apparent due to his inability to answer even simple theoretical questions, but yet he reached grade 11. Somehow he learned the skills of math and passed the math exam. But when he came to me, he wanted to know why he couldn't understand and pass in the accounts section. Upon investigation, I realized that he had no idea of what accounting was for. He had consulted earlier many teachers, but he just couldn't understand accounts, even though he could read the book. He said he didn't want to study accounts. By asking him why, he said he didn't know. When I asked him what is his aim, and he said it was to do some kind of business. Apparently his mother owns a convenience store, but he's not allowed to be in the shop. So the first mission here was to make him interested in accounts by showing him how the studies of accounts will help him in becoming a businessman, and how his own mother is using accounts to pay for his college fees. So I made him do a single entry journal for one day's transaction. From that, we derived the profit and loss, the stocks, the receivables and payables, and the cash flow. So now he was excited about accounts because he realized it was important. In this way, now he was motivated to acquire the skills of making ledger entries, journal entries, trial balances. Just because he doesn't understand doesn't mean that he cannot understand. As I told you early on, we are all wired to master the four brain quadrants. It's just that we are born with the predominance of one of the quadrants. However, if we are able to start the education process in the dominant quadrant, of the student, then he will by himself develop the other quadrants. So in this case, the student was dominated by the information quadrant. So I provided him with the relation of the subject he hated, that is accounts, to his ambition and his mother's occupation. Immediately, he felt the energy and electricity to understand the various skills required to pass in the accounts subject. I meet these students later on, and they say that they are doing very well because of that particular counseling session. It's just what they needed, a jump start or a kick start, whatever you call it. But it has to come from the quadrant of the brain that their learning is dominated by. So by now you are very familiar with the concept of using the four-brain learning approach in helping students learn. Let me share you a horror story, but there are many of them. For this book, I'll just share to you one of the most horrible ones. This has to do with the skill quadrant itself. See, people are not born perfect or geniuses. Yes, some are, but most need to be taught. People don't become dumb or fools without reason. The findings that I've made are so shocking, but my research and investigation on the learning isn't over, so I'm not spilling all my beans yet. So coming back to that reason, I've found that the reason students fail and end up dumb is that like I said in the earlier example, they were dominated by a quadrant other than the skill quadrant, and that was never addressed, and as a result they couldn't find the motivation to work on their skill quadrant. Still, if the teachers work hard enough, the students are able to complete their degrees even though they don't enjoy the process of studying. Also, they would leave their school and colleges with basic skills of language and mathematics that they can use in their daily lives to manage official work, legal papers, and their personal finances. However, the astounding number of students that fail and become dumb is because the teachers and the educational institution, as well as the syllabus, was not able to provide them the very skills that they were supposed to master. How so? Because they didn't care and the child wasn't proactive enough. Let me give you some examples. So there was this student that came, and again, he was finding it difficult to understand math. He had completed his schools with good enough grades, like I think it was a B in math. So I did various tests, and the final one shocked me. I asked him, if you are a shopkeeper and a customer comes and asks to buy biscuits, he says that he wants 1 dozen and it costs 500 rupees. However, later on he changes his mind and he just wants one packet. How much should you charge him? Now he can use the calculator. That is our students. You have to remember that today's students have lost the skill of calculating using pen and paper. However, it was quite evident that in the above example, you have to use the division operator, that is dividing 500 by 12, and you'll get the price for one. However, this student had no clue how to come to the price of 1 from 12. He just didn't know that division had to be done in this scenario, and he was in grade 11. Next, I asked him, how much would you charge for 2 biscuits, 5 biscuits, 10 biscuits? And he added 5 to the per unit rate instead of multiplying it. Now, I want to ask you, whose fault is it? They have mastered the skill to pass the exam, but they could not translate the skill to make this simple real life calculation. So even these educational systems kingship over the skill quadrant is questionable. Most likely, this boy was taught arithmetics in school in a classroom of 50 students. He was at the back, he didn't understand, and nobody bothered to ask him. In the exam, he memorized or cheated. After the exam, he forgot. Then in the higher classes, like now in grade 11 and 12, where those arithmetic skills become given and the basis for new skills to be acquired, his house falls down. Now let me give you an example in the language department. Just today I had a counseling session with a student who was told that he wrote poorly. Then I checked his work and gave him some tests, and I found out that he wrote without capital letter, commas, full stops, and certainly no paragraph change. And I asked him why, but he did not know because he never used them, he said. But he studied very hard. So using voice to text app, I made him speak what he did the day before today. When he spoke, it was apparent that he was using commas, full stops, and paragraph change. We all know that language that we learn in school is just reflection of what we speak. First, speech was developed, then the written language. However, this boy had no idea what a comma did in a speech, and certainly not in a writing that had to be read. So for the earlier boy, I taught him how to divide with the help of a pizza and dividing it into 12 pieces, and then using the calculator because there was no way he could use a pen paper to come with the answer. Thereafter, I told him not to add in order to find the price for 5 packets of chocolate, but to multiply. Now he was very clear. For the first time, he understood what was plus, minus, into, and divide were about and what for. He was excited that with this acquired skill, he could acquire the skills of this hated subject of his, that is accounts, that he hates no more anyways, and other mathematical subjects. The boy who had a language problem also came out of the counseling session very happy after I made him put commas and full stops and paragraph changes in the text that he had spoken on the voice to text app. It made him realize how more beautiful the division was of the word. It gave him great motivation and confidence because now he had this skill to master more skills. This is because now he had the ability to express himself in a grammatically correct way. But the question is still there. Whose fault is it that these two students ended up the way they were? Both of them had stopped learning the skills at grade 5. The layers of skill of grade 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 were absent, both in the language department and the mathematics department. Without those two skill sets, how can they ever learn and master other subjects? Isn't it wonder that the world is filled with fools, dumbs, and impostures? I have many students who are strongly knowledge quadrant dominant. So for them, studies become boring. All you need to do for this kind of students is to tell them the overall direction. I mentioned that earlier with the example of the Eiffel Tower. So basically, you got to tell them the objective of all those skills and facts. They'll ask questions upon questions. You can't answer all of them, but they expect some logical answers. They just want to know what they are doing, why they are doing, and where it's taking them. The problem with these students is that they lack the skill to connect the knowledge quadrant with the skill quadrant, that is, the research skills. So I teach them how to look on the internet to get the overall picture, to learn the basics. Nowadays there's ChatGPT or Gemini or even DeepSeek or Copilot I teach them how to use those AI apps to check their own works, be it in languages or mathematics. In this way, they get excited. Also, I teach them to explain the current news on politics, economics, science, the environment using the knowledge that they have. Again, it doesn't have to be meticulous, it just gotta be logically sound. Once they are motivated in knowing that there's a use of their knowledge to make sense of the world around them, they feel more excited to study and acquire more skills, and their boredom is lost. When all fails, the surest and fastest way to motivate students to learn any subject is to use the wisdom quadrant of theirs. Everybody wants to relate and compare one thing to another. It's just the way our minds are built. Very few people do not understand analogies and metaphors. For example, the most memorable way to teach Newton's third law, which is about action and reaction, is to tell the students that it's like the law of karma. If you do something bad will happen back to you, and if you do something good, it will be a good thing that happens to you. Oh, now they understand. And this gives this motivation, this springboard moment to actually study the subject and master the skills in the skill quadrant. Then you can tell them that the Newton's second law, which is about force, is the same as saying that the harder you work, the more marks you get. Again, it doesn't have to be even logical. It's just got to be a comparison that makes some sense and bring some feelings. The students want to see some experiments right away, and in this way they can have the desire to acquire the skills, which is really boring, but it's not impossible once you have the desire. For example, in chemistry, in order to teach them valency and why some elements bond with certain elements and not the others, I usually tell them that why you two friends are sitting together. This is because your valency is similar, and well, in the same way, similar atoms with the right valency numbers attract one another. At this, the students get humorous and laugh, and now chemistry becomes easier to study and more bearable.